First question. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Zakir. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Muhammad Shafi bin Rahman from Batu Pahat, Johar. I have two questions. What are the criteria for any food product that are processed in the factory to be authentically be placed under the halal category? Number two, if any food products that are prepared and packed in the factory owned by non-Muslim and the workers are non-Muslim who consume and touch pork at home on regular basis and also take their lunch with pork curry, we as Muslims, can we consume that food product even though it has been certified with halal logo, supposed to be issued by Islamic authority of that country? I hope to get your answer to clarify this confusion in me, and also as a Muslim, if this is a sin to consume this food touched and prepared by pork eating non-Muslim workers. Regarding the first question, that what are the criteria for any food to be halal, if it's made in a factory or processed, or any food to be halal? And the second question is that if in a factory owned by non-Muslims, if the workers are non-Muslim, and at home if they have pork and they eat pork, and with the same hand they come into the factory and they make food, can we have this food? Is it allowed for a Muslim to have food which is touched by non-Muslims which eat pork? As far as what are the criteria for any food to be halal, the basic rule is that if it is not against the Sharia, if that food is not prohibited in the Quran or the Sahih Hadith, it is permitted. The basic rule of the fuqahas, including Shaykhul Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, is that all food is permissible unless there is evidence of it being prohibited. So the general rule is that all food are prohibited. All other things also, whether it be the soap you use or the other things, general ruling is everything is halal unless there is evidence of it being prohibited. And Shaykhul Islam Ibn Taymiyyah in the Majwa Fatawa, he says, and he quotes the verse of the Quran of Surah Nisa, chapter 4, verse number 59. Atiullah, Atiur Rasul, obey Allah and obey the messengers and those who have been charged with authority. That means you have to obey Allah and obey the messengers and those who have been charged with authority. And then in the verse of Surah Ma'idah, chapter number 5, verse number 55, it says that they are your wali, your protectors, your friends. That is Allah, His messenger and the believers. So based on this, the fuqahas and the scholars have said that generally everything is haram. Everything is halal unless there is evidence of it being haram. And the second ruling is that anything which is harmful is generally haram. And the thing that is harmful can be in three categories: that the harm is much more than the benefit, or the harm is equal to that of the benefit, or the benefit is more than the harm. As far as the first category is concerned, if it is more harmful than benefit, it becomes haram. And that's what the Quran says in Surah Baqarah, chapter 2, verse number 219. When they ask thee concerning intoxicants, tell them in it is benefit as well as harm. But the harm is more than the benefit. So if the harm is more than the benefit, the general ruling is it is haram. Even if the benefit and the harm is equal, it becomes haram. Only in cases where the benefit is more than the harm, in this case, the benefit carries more weight and it becomes permissible. So generally, all the harmful goods are haram. And Quran says in Surah Baqarah, chapter 2, verse number 195, that make not your own hands the cause of your own destruction. And further, it's also mentioned in Surah Nisa, chapter 4, verse number 29, that kill not your own selves or others, for Allah is most merciful. So killing yourself or killing others is prohibited in Islam. So whatever is harmful is haram is the general ruling. But generally, for food also, everything is halal unless there is evidence of it being haram. As far as the meat are concerned, generally, the meat is haram. If it's of an animal which is prohibited, it is haram. And Quran says in Surah Ma'idah chapter 5 verse number 1 that lawful for you are all four-footed animals with the exception name and the exception that are given in the Quran as pork. Surah Ma'idah chapter 5 verse number 3, Surah Baqarah chapter 2 verse number 172, verse number 173, in Surah Anam chapter 6 verse 145, and Surah Nahl chapter 16 verse 115, Hurrimat alaykumul maitatu waddamu walamul khinzir. Ulla ghairil bi. That forbidden for you for food are dead meat, blood, the flesh of swine, and any food on which Allah's name is taken. And there are various hadith that say that the animals that are prohibited are the animals with canine teeth, the carnivorous animals, the birds with talons. So all the animals that are prohibited in the Quran or the hadith is mentioned. The ones which are permitted are the cattle. Even the animals which are permitted, whether it be goat, whether it be cow, these cattle and the permitted animals, they are only permitted if they fulfill the conditions of the Sharia, unless they are haram. Otherwise they are haram. So these animals which are permitted, even the meat generally is haram unless it is slaughtered by the Islamic method of zabiyah. So these are the ruling of the Sharia. So if it's slaughtered by the Islamic method of zabiyah and all the conditions are fulfilled, the name of Allah is taken, then it becomes permitted. So generally, this is the ruling for the food. Now, you ask me the question that if, and the ruling also is general, that the Prophet said that if you go to house of a Muslim, you don't have to inquire. It's understood that if a Muslim is serving you any food, that food is halal. Unless you have evidence that the Muslim has bought a haram food. Otherwise, you don't have to inquire. Similarly, if you are buying food or a meat in a Muslim country, it is the duty of the Muslim authority, if it's a Muslim majority country, and the Muslim authority to see to it that's halal. It's their job. And if an Islamic organization or a Muslim country puts the halal logo, it is understood that you can have it freely. You don't have to inquire much unless there is evidence that surely that they are making a mistake or they are saying it's halal but it's not halal. So unless there is solid evidence and proof that that product is haram, that's the only time you can doubt. But if an Islamic organization puts a halal logo, as a Muslim you have to agree with it, unless there's evidence that they've made a gross error. Now coming to the second part of the question, that what about Muslim factories, or what about food factories which are processed in food, which are owned by non-Muslim, and the workers are non-Muslim, and that worker at home, they have pork curry, and when they come to the factory with the same hands, they are holding food. Isn't it haram just because the Muslim organization gives a halal logo, does it become halal? Now this is an absurd thinking that just because non-Muslims at home, if they have pork, now when they eat pork, do you mean to say they don't wash their hands and they come with that same dirty hand of pork and they come to the factory? And the answer is no. It is useless. It is nonsense. And if certain non-Muslims are doing this, no Muslim or non-Muslim country will agree that they're having food at home and with their dirty unwashed hand they are touching food. Even a non-Muslim country won't agree with it. So you saying that the non-Muslim, because at home he's touching pork and he comes to the factory with the same hands, of course he's washed his hands. It is illogical. It's like a non-Muslim telling me that, you know, these Muslims, when they go for call of nature, when they go for defecation, they wash the backside with their hands and they wipe the excreta with their hand, and with the same hand they make their food. Will you agree with the argument? And you laugh at them. Okay, yes, we Muslims for hygiene, when we go to the long call of nature, we wash. But after washing, what do? We wash our hands also with soap. And once you wash your hand with the soap, your hand becomes clean. And once you cook the food with your hand, it's acceptable. If there is a lunatic Muslim who goes to the washroom and washes his backside after call of nature, and with the dirty hands he cooks food, it is haram in Islam. The excreta of a human being is more bad than the pork. Even the excreta is haram. So it's illogical for you to agree with the argument of a non-Muslim that that's because Muslims, when they go to the toilet with their hands, they wash their backside. With the same hand they cook their food, they're unhygienic. You will call them fools. Yes, we are hygienic people. we wash our backside, we are clean, but after we wash our hands with soap. So this argument is nonsense for a Muslim to say that the non-Muslim at home, he has pork and with that same hand, he is handling food. This is illogical argument. So it is nonsense for you to say that if non-Muslims touch, yes, if the non-Muslim touch food, they may be touching with the gloves, the hand should be clean. If it's dirty, it's unhygienic. If it's not dirty, it's acceptable. It's not haram at all. What we can object is that you can go to a restaurant which serves pork and there can be high possibility that the utensils which they serve pork, they can serve the other food which is halal, and you object to it, I agree with you. Or if you go to a restaurant which is serving alcohol and that same glass can be used for serving water to you and it may be not hygienic, I agree with you. But you're talking about a factory where non-Muslims are working because they have haram food at home with their hands and the same hands they are using for making food here. It's illogical. And please, when an Islamic organization puts a halal logo, you have to trust. And Malaysia is one of the strictest as far as halal certification is concerned. I don't know of any country which is as strict as Malaysia as far as the certificate of halal logo is to be given. It is centrally controlled by the government. There is a separate organization called JAKIM, and they are very strict. Amongst all even if you go to Saudi Arabia is not as strict as Malaysia. So even if the mutton is imported from India, they see to it that Malaysia sends its own people to the factory of that company and they see it and they strictly monitor it. And they see to it that they fulfills the conditions of the Sharia. See to it that the Zabiyah is done correctly. It is done merciful and it's done in the proper way. They are very strict. So you cannot just talk about, any organization. Malaysia is very strict. Yes, there are occasions where somebody, I know that in the last few months, there were occasions that some of the officers bribed and there was a cartel that was, trying to smuggle in non-halal meat. That's a stray incidences. And of course, they were exposed and they were caught and the problem was solved. But as a whole, Malaysia, alhamdulillah, is the best country in the world as far as halal certification is concerned. And they are so strict that sometimes they go overboard. And it's good. They are very strict. So if it's a certification from Malaysia, you can be rest assured that it is correct. Unless you have evidence in certain stray incidences, it's a different case. But as far as what is happening in Malaysia, if it's certified by the Malaysian government and by the Islamic organization, you can be rest assured and have it and don't have to really go and do much investigation unless there's evidence of proof. Hope that answers the question.